Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is India Zoigo, and it's been an honor to serve as the fifth president of TSMA. On behalf of our organization, thank you all for joining us for what's promising to be a very inspiring and insightful conversation. Tonight, we have the privilege of hearing from a physician whose career reflects the qualities many of us aspire to embody: excellence, innovation, leadership, and a deep commitment to mentorship. And for students at every stage, from pre-medical to clinical training, this is a unique opportunity to learn about the mindset, the perseverance, and the sense of purpose required to make such an impactful, meaningful impact on medicine and the world at large. So we're so grateful to have you here, Dr. Bacchus. Please join me in giving her a warm welcome. Again, this is supposed to be a very organic, laid-back conversation to learn more about the greatness that she embodies and does every day. So I'll give the floor to just give you briefly introduce yourself, Dr. Bacchus, and then we'll talk a little bit more about some of the questions that we have here.
Sure. Thank you very much, Nina. Thank you to the organization for the invitation to chat with you guys. Things like this are always really fun and kind of help to add more meaning to what we do. So I'm grateful to be here. I'm a thoracic surgeon, a professor at Stanford in our Department of Cardiothoracic Surgery. And I do general thoracic surgery, so that includes basically everything in the chest that's not the heart or the aorta. Although we do work very closely with our cardiac surgery colleagues, and of course, there's the common pathway for training that we all partake in.
Amazing. So the first question that we have here is what first drew you to thoracic surgery, and when did you realize this was the field where you could make your greatest impact?
I don't know that I was so lofty in my aspirations to say that I was going to make the greatest impact per se, but I do think that there's something to be said for um, the tether between being impactful and being passionate about what you do. And so for me, I just followed what I was interested in, what I liked. I didn't have some preconceived notion that I was born to be a CT surgeon or anything like that. I did think I wanted to be a surgeon from a very young age, like in middle school. I wanted to be a neurosurgeon first and then pivoted to CT surgery. But I think it just speaks to the kind of following your little sparks of interest and passions that you get along the way. Especially too, because it is such a long road for training. You better really like what you do. So it wasn't until I was in general surgery, um, and my third year that I decided that I wanted to do thoracic surgery. And that was right before I left the clinical rotations to go and do 2 years worth of research, which is a really good time to kind of codify your interests.
Yeah. And I guess looking back at your journey, what were the most impactful moments that really influenced your growth as a physician and a leader?
Um, hmm. Uh, I can't say that they're singular events, if you will. I think it's just more of a culmination of things. I try to maintain a strong sense of humility and recognize that I don't know everything. In fact, I know very little. And so I think it's really important to stop and ask for directions along the way to
Mm,
whatever it is that your journey is. So I'm a huge fan of collecting mentors in my cabinet, if you will, of really smart people to be around who help to advise me and guide me and present opportunities to me, etc. So I think for any given challenge that I've had, there are very few challenges that are unique now where I think, gosh, I don't know anybody who could help me with this. Like pretty much anything that comes my way, I don't know the answer to, but I'm like, you know who probably would? So and so would. And so I give them a call or I set up a meeting. And it's great. So I think everyone should be sort of on a journey to fill your brain trust with all the important people that are going to help guide you along the way.
Brain trust. I love that word. I guess for those who are pre-medical students and medical students in the call, how should we start thinking about building that trust of mentors, sponsors? What advice would you give to them on that?
I think one of the downsides of being a medical student is sometimes, you're so focused on the journey ahead, you don't realize actually you've done some pretty cool things up to this point too. And that you are accomplished in your own right, which is important, and I think helps to empower you to know that it's okay to cold email somebody or to just approach someone at a meeting or whatever, like, because that sometimes may feel like an insurmountable barrier. Like, "Ugh, what am I gonna, I can't just like walk up to them and start talking to them." Like, yeah, you can. I mean, there's nothing special about us in that regard. Um, so I think empowering yourself to recognize that um, you are your best salesperson, you are your best advocate, um, and being proactive about it. No one's gonna, pluck you out of obscurity and say, ah, you there, you're like the next Shumway. Like that doesn't happen, So you've got to be empowered and nimble to advocate on your own behalf. I don't know. I think that that's a pretty powerful thing. And I guess on the flip side of that, once you've made that entree, once you've made that overture, how do you follow up on it? Often I will have meetings with students and there's no set agenda, and I don't know, sometimes I maybe caught them off guard, like, oh, I didn't think you'd answer the email kind of thing. And now here we are meeting, which is great, but it's a really poor use of your time and that person's time who's carved out the time to sit and talk to you. So just, I tell students often, imagine if you were paying for this, like if you were paying for a professional career consultant, to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour, you would be super prepared for that. You would have it all spelled out and written out and planned to a T. So, take advantage of the opportunities that are given to you by really trying to squeeze and milk every bit of advice and insight as possible. And if you yourself don't have some thought spent in this space to try to get your priorities straight, etc., then it's going to just fall woefully short of the mark. Like, so the best way to get the most out of these interactions, which are far and few between and really precious, is to prepare overly so.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the audience on any of that was just shared? So many words of wisdom.
I actually do have a question.
Go ahead.
In terms of reaching out to people that we may think could be mentors for us in the field, I know you said, just, kind of reach out and like don't be scared or anything. But is there anything that you recommend doing? I know you had said prepare before going in, before actually going into that meeting. Anything more specific? Just so, again, it is a good use of our time and not a waste of theirs. Sorry.
Um, I would I would turn the tables back to you to say, why did you pick this person to approach in the first place? Because whatever it was about them that made them stand out to you is probably something organically that you felt was a connection. It can't just be, oh, because you're like the biggest name in cardiac surgery. That's pretty lame. That's not substantive enough, It's got to be because I read your article on this really cool technique. I don't know very much about it, but I was curious to know more about X, Y, and Z. Or I'm really keen on research in this particular area. Or I noticed this aspect of your background, which is very similar to mine. It doesn't matter what the tether is, but I guess I would probably use that as an entree. Like, why did you select this person? It can't just be, well, I sent an email to 100 surgeons and you're the only one that responded.
Thank you.
I see a question in the chat. What strategies or specific organizations would you recommend for IMGs to actively build a strong mentorship network within the US thoracic surgery community before applying to residency?
I think that's incredibly difficult for many reasons. It's going to be, in my experience, I mean, I'm not omniscient, but in my experience, it's impossible almost to crack the nut and to get into the US medical training machinery as a foreign medical graduate if you don't have a sponsor that's here, that's advocating for you. And the only way to get that is to become a known entity with people. And that often requires spending multiple years kind of ingratiating yourself, for lack of a better word, but being ever present, being beyond stellar and whatever it is that you're doing. And again, just really kind of leveraging that time such that, let's say you're afforded 1 year research, you know, fellowship with somebody. It's incredibly difficult to do all of those things in 1 year. Like that's not going to happen. So your primary goal has got to be, what do I got to do to get year 2? Is year 2 going to be here? If it's not going to be here, it needs to be elsewhere. You've got to be like super on it to try to, and if it's possible to stay in the same institution, that would be ideal. Because the minute you go and change institutions, now you got to start all over again with building equity with a whole new institution, a whole new set of people, etc. It may not be feasible. So I'm not saying, oh, if somebody only offers you 1 year, to just turn it down because you're looking for a multi-year commitment kind of thing. But I would say that those are the priorities to create some sort of multi-year equity building time within an institution. And when you're at that institution, really fully aligning yourself with, you can't fully align yourself with everyone, but whoever are the pivotal players, the key players, or the people with whom you just have the best connection that you think are going to be winding up being your best advocates. Because oftentimes people will gravitate towards the big name person, and that's not necessarily the person that you need or want. You really need somebody who's going to be vested in you. And that big name person may or may not even know your name. So spending a whole bunch of time trying to become a known entity with them may be fruitless, or they're known, but they're not good advocates. So like your main criteria for selecting someone to be within your little brain trust has got to be someone who's genuinely interested in your career, your well-being, you in general. And nobody's going to do that de novo, right? You have to make them want to be invested in you and your success. And I hate, when you listen to like leadership talks or, someone's personal story about how they succeeded, did X, Y, and Z. And it's all very nebulous. And it's like, oh, well, I was sort of sitting at my desk and I got a phone call from Dr. Smith, and Dr. Smith said, hey, why don't you do this? And then I did it. And then the rest is history. Like that doesn't really help anybody who's trying to strategize. And yet it's not as formulaic as you'd like it to be. I mean, I wish I could tell you like a plug and play thing, but I'm trying to be as discreet as possible because I think it is hard to sort of deal with euphemisms. And people are like, oh, just make yourself available. Like, what does that even mean?
I think you raised some really great points there, especially that key qualities that make an exceptional mentor, being able to have someone who's invested in you and being able to advocate for you. What are some other things that you've noticed over the course of your career, your time and different levels of training that you felt to be very important, especially at the stage of being a medical student or a pre-medical student for people in the audience?
Well, I started to touch upon the fact that, you actually have accomplished quite a bit already by being in medical school and having graduated college. Like these are not minor things. I mean, to get into medical school is a big achievement right now, right? So I would, I guess, double down on that to emphasize the fact that, like right here in the Zoom call, this is your cohort. These are your people. And they're going to be going through all the same steps at the same time as you. And there's tremendous value in the collective wisdom of your peer mentors. Especially too, because oftentimes, right, you're talking to people who are decades senior to you. So maybe they don't quite have their finger on the pulse in the way that you need it to be. Maybe you need way more minutia, way more detailed information that they're otherwise just not going to be able to tell you. I can't tell you about studying for step 1, right? But your friends can, and the people that are just 2 years ahead of you can. So I would definitely capitalize on your peer mentor groups and those just immediate above you, like the TSRA, the current residents, because they're going to really have their finger on the pulse of the nuts and bolts of what it takes to get to that very next level.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's also important to note, as Vice President of WTS, to kind of hear a little bit more about the progress that you've seen in being able to advance women's progress within CT surgery, and also what challenges you've witnessed that still remain that we can all learn about and try to progress toward being able to improve.
Well, I think it's a really good time. Well, it was a good time, and then now maybe we're taking a little dip, but we had some pretty good momentum up until very recently. And it's great. I mean, it's this double-edged sword because you want to celebrate the victories and say, boy, look at that. We went from, like nearly zero representation to, like 12-15%, which is great, but is 12-15% really great? Not so much. Not when we're like 50% of the workforce, Um, and if you keep slicing the pie thinner down to congenital, down to cardiac, the numbers are really not very good at all. So, yes, we've made progress, and it's nice to take a moment to sort of celebrate those incremental victories, but recognize still the road is far and long. But I do think that everything has softened a bit in terms of our ability to recognize important attributes of applicants, to really try to foster well-being initiatives to take care of our trainees, so that we have less attrition, and to support them all the way up through the highest levels. Now, one of the things, if you're my age or older, is that there are not that many people that look like you in the same strata or higher. The higher you go, the thinner the air is, the less people that you have who are your colleagues that actually look like you. And that can be a bit of a problem because, again, I just mentioned that you need to rely on your peer networks, and if you don't really have the everything codified at the peer level, how do you level up? It can be challenging for sure. So like that's one of the things that the WTS is really excited about is if you like again, if you look at sort of the distribution by rank of whichever demographic you choose to look at, that's a minoritized group, whether it's by gender, whatever marker you use, and you look to see what that representation is by level in academic medicine, for instance, it's very pyramidal, right? Like it's super tiny up top. It's getting better at the bottom, which is great, but that maturation process takes time. And so we in WTS have been very good at creating opportunities, et cetera, for our trainees, a ton of training opportunities, a ton of junior faculty opportunities, not very much in the mid-career level, and certainly not anything at the senior surgeon level. And part of that has been because we just haven't had the numbers there at all. But now we're starting to. So that's part of our big initiatives that we have is to try to come up with the support services and kind of wraparound care to help promote our female surgeons as they mature beyond just the trainee level. Like once you sort of survive the Darwinian challenge and, gotten to be an assistant or associate professor, what happens next, and trying to concentrate on that group of people.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bacchus. Go ahead, Seelan.
Hi, something you said earlier kind of caught my attention. I think in relation to IMGs, you said you have to make a mentor want to invest in you and advocate for you. And so, in your experience as a mentor, like what qualities have you seen in mentees with goals of becoming a cardiothoracic surgeon that made you want to advocate for them and invest in them?
I think that's an excellent question. I would say the ones who are the most prepared, the ones who are like, hey, this is like part of a plan that I have. It's not fully fleshed out, but I would love to do something like this. And I'm really looking for a partner that can help me to realize my dream. Not, hi, I want to be you. How do I be you? Right? Like that's not very inspiring. You want somebody who's done the work or part of the work and has demonstrated enough positive momentum and inertia that, I'm not going to have to, I can help 5 people if I want to, if I'm only being asked to kind of help get them incrementally to the next level. But if I've got to take, a seed pod and make that into a plant, that's a bigger lift. And I can only do that with one. So I'd much rather spread myself around but still be impactful with more people. And I'm only able to do that when the individuals have demonstrated enough kind of wherewithal and ingenuity that I think it's going to be a good investment.
Incredible. I guess on that same note about being able to find balance, especially when it comes to having so many people to sort of mentor, how do you balance having so many hats throughout all the different like levels of your career and being able to be there for them, being able to support them while being able to be all the other titles that you hold as a human on this earth, basically?
As a human on this earth, well, that's pretty big. I mean, the short answer is I don't know. I don't know that we're ever like just crushing it all the time, I mean, I think you have spurts of when you're crushing it, and that's good, and that buoys you through the times when you're very much not crushing it. Like just yesterday, I got an email saying, hey, don't forget to do that writing assignment that was assigned to you that everybody's waiting on today, like it's due today. And I was telling my husband, I'm like, this is the worst. This is like the nightmare when you're in college and you wake up and you're like, oh my God, there's a final for this class I didn't even know I was in. Like, that's what I felt like. Like, wait, what? I said I was gonna like write a whole section of a paper like tonight that's due. I mean, it was just like, so clearly I had dropped the ball, and which sucks because I really pride myself on handling my business, handling the things that need to be taken care of. And so this was like a huge departure from my self-image, if you will. But you scramble and you figure it out, and you got to be crafty. You got to, lean on your people and suck it up and buckle down and do what needs doing. So anyway, that's just an example, and I only brought it up to just demonstrate fallibility and the fact that none of us are perfect. We're all just kind of trying to do things as best we can. And I don't hold anyone to an expectation that I myself wouldn't be willing to do. Like I'm not going to, expect somebody to not go to their parents' birthday celebration and instead sit down and write this thing for me. Like that doesn't make any sense. So why would I wouldn't want to do that. So why would I have somebody else do that? So anyway, I try to just be human. Remember that we're all human. But to be very clear about what the expectations are with people and with myself, I do think that we're our own worst critics. We are kind of self-selected into this area, right? And so we have a lot of common personality traits that steered us here. And it serves us really well, like you're definitive, you're decisive, you take care of what needs taken care of. And these are all traits that serve you incredibly well when you're in the operating room and you're like, do I cut here? Yes or no? Like there's no, I'm not sure, I'm gonna do this, that, and the other. Like you need to decide. Here we are. And that, like I said, that serves you really well in surgery. It doesn't always serve you well outside of the operating room when you're just like in a regular meeting and you're like, let's go, people. But I do think in general it serves you well. And so that skill set will translate well into maintaining whatever balance it is that you want. I think the hardest thing, like I said, is recognizing that more than the external forces, particularly as you age and mature, you have a lot more self-efficacy, you have a lot more enterprise than you appreciate. And so rather than looking at your schedule and saying, woe is me, this is insane, this is ridiculous, this is too much, I can't do this, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, that's on you. There are no rescue squads coming in to like fix the situation. Like that's on you. And so you take the bull by the horns, you figure out what it is that you need to do. Your assistant isn't psychic, it's like when you're in college and every professor is giving you 50,000 things to do and they don't know what one another is doing. Well, you don't have the ability to truncate the work in a given class, but you don't have to take all those classes if you knew ahead of time. Again, that's still on you. So just trying to figure out where the bar is and you set the bar. If you set the bar exceedingly high and you're always failing, it's because you were not being realistic about it. And so then that breeds discontent and, you feel inadequate, etc. But if you're realistic about things and you're kind to yourself and you kind of have a little out of body experience and say, if I was my own best friend and I was just sort of looking at this, whatever this is, as a pair of external eyes, what would I say? I'd be like, what are you doing? It doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you set yourself up like that? And of course you couldn't do that because that's impossible or whatever. And so don't. It's on you.
Thank you for giving such a real and raw answer to that question. I see another question in the chat here from Arlette. Good evening, Dr. Bacchus. What do you think will be the biggest changes in thoracic oncology or surgery over the next 5 to 10 years, considering your background and your research as well?
Well, I mean, there's this whole concept of precision oncology and really trying to get away from this one size fits all approach to, well, you have cancer X and this is the treatment for it. To really saying, what are the molecular underpinnings of this cancer? What is your particular tumor's biology? How do we come up with tailored regimens that are very specific to you and that will hopefully be very specific to the cancer to minimize the side effects, to make treatment more tolerable, and to make the treatment more efficacious as well. So I think kind of globally, holistically, we're definitely moving towards completely exploding the whole precision oncology thing. Like, even if you just look at tumor staging, for instance, for lung cancer, as an example, it went from very rudimentary, stage 1, 2, 3, 4 to like 1,000 little substages and even different metastatic stages. And then there's 5,000 parameters based on the molecular profile of given tumors, etc. So I think that the world of our immunotherapies and targeted therapies is going to continue to explode as it already has been doing. I still think there's a role for surgery. I don't think that the medicines are going to be so magical to completely take away the need to actually resect and excise a tumor. But our surgeries will probably dichotomize themselves such that we will have much smaller, even more kind of micro surgeries, if you will, that are much more targeted and much more for diagnostic purposes or more minimally invasive or whatever, like physically smaller. But then also you're still going to have the more extreme examples, right? Where these are big tumors and we need to still cultivate our skills to do radical surgery because we're still going to have some of those. So I think it's the middle kind of more bread and butter stuff that's going to be more diluted out. And there'll be very few patients who are going to come in and just get a singular intervention for their cancer. Everything is going to be multimodality. Everything is going to have multiple providers taking care of a given patient, which is good and bad. I think it's going to be bad for some patients who suffer from fragmentation of their care or for poor health literacy and trying to navigate this whole thing that it's already hard enough for, grandma to come in and get her blood pressure checked, let alone to try to navigate like 3 different providers for her induction regimen, her surgery, her adjuvant therapy, etc. Like that's a lot. So it's just going to get more complicated.
Thank you so much for that question, Arlette. I guess thinking about that a little bit more, for students wanting to learn more about how these systems work, so they can change them in the future, what do you recommend they can do now to be able to become advocates, be at the floor, be able to advocate for people and their patients that they're working with, to sort of see like how we can address this and become tools for change in the future?
Well, there's sort of this groundswell of student-run organizations, like including the Lung Cancer Screening Initiative, ALSI. I think that's a really shining example of how it doesn't require like a ton of in-depth medical knowledge, right? Like it takes people who are interested, people who care, and people who can help be the frontline soldiers to disseminate information and to do a whole lot of the extra work that falls out upstream and falls outside of our healthcare institutions that still is required to give good care and provide good care to the patient, but that often falls out of the purview of the actual medical team. So I think there are a tremendous amount of opportunities for students to be engaged in that way and others. I mean, that's just one example that I happen to know of, but there are others out there. And so like I feel like when I was an undergrad, it was like maybe an occasional health fair where you can help take somebody's blood pressure. Like that was about it, but in my opinion, I could be wrong, but I think that there are more opportunities to be impactful, like straight away, than there ever had been before.
Thank you. Any other questions from our audience before oh, go ahead, Maggie.
Hi, Dr. Bacchus. Thank you so much for your time. So earlier you mentioned priority quite a number of times. I'm asking from a medical student's perspective. I'm curious, what do you think that kind of priority should look like academically in med school for someone who's interested in CT surgery? Like, how do we get to the next step?
Some of it has to do with where you are. Some of it has to do with your grades. Some of it has to do with what are the local resources available to you. Do you have a local CT surgery program? The vast majority of medical schools do not. So if you don't have access to CT surgeons, you've got to get access to them. Do you get access to them by away rotations, by kind of extracurricular things, or by exposure through our national societies and organizations? I don't know. It depends on what makes sense for you. Do you have ready access to mentors? If not, then how are you going to cultivate them and get some, and foster that mentorship in a meaningful way? If you don't have a local CT surgery program, chances are you do have vascular surgery. Chances are you do have pulmonology. You have critical care. You have trauma. All of these things can be very helpful in terms of their overlap and transferability to a career in CT surgery that you may need to leverage. If you have access to labs and research opportunities, that's going to be of paramount importance. Does your school have honors still, or does your school have I'm blanking on the honor society, AOA? If it does have AOA, well, you better try to get it. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's fine. But if your school gives out honors, well, you better make sure you get honors in surgery and your surgical subspecialty, surgical sub-Is or whatever. If they don't, again, that's okay. But it's like that's why it's tailored to you and your school and what's offered there. Like I said, if you don't have ready access to research, you'll need to figure that out and get some, because it's almost impossible to, I hate using words, it's absolute like that, but I'm just saying it for emphasis though, like it's very difficult to get entry into one of these specialties, not just CT surgery, but any of the difficult specialties, which are usually surgical, if you don't have prior exposure and research demonstrating that you've done more than the average person. And more than anything, think about it from the perspective of the program. I know I have a very long training program that people might quit. I want to make sure that the people coming in my program have the fortitude and the aptitude to be able to succeed in my program, because if you quit, that's a huge, scarlet letter. I can't have that. So I'm only going to spend this, and I only have 2 spots or whatever. So who am I going to spend it on? You know, and that's not to say everybody needs to be, from Oxford or Harvard or, Yale or Stanford, whatever. It's to say that here's a patient, here's a student who is connected to people I know. So I can call them and say, hey, how's Maggie? Is she like solid or not? That's great, because that's not a heavy lift for me. I don't have to work very hard. Just figure out if Maggie's a good student or not. I can just call my friend. Or, Maggie's got 10 publications and Susie has 2. 2 is probably average. So it's not like Susie is bad. She's not. Susie's doing her level best, right? But Maggie's kind of crushing it. She's got 10. I don't know what she's doing, but she's probably doing good things. I don't know how she pulled that off, but she's probably got a whole lot going on for her, So anyway, just think about who your competition is, and really exploit and maximize the opportunities that you have. And the converse is true. So if you have a CT surgery program and you haven't done anything with these people, that's a big problem, because I'm going to look at that and be like, what's wrong with you? Why are you reaching out to me all the way over here at Stanford when, you're right there at, Emory, is it just because you're from California and you want to come back to California? That's not a good reason, because you're at Emory and Emory's a great program. So why aren't you capitalizing on the resources that are right there? That doesn't make sense. So just keep things like that in mind.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, that was really comprehensive. Thank you.
Yeah, so many gems were shared in that response. I want to give a moment for people to ask more questions or follow-ups to that. It also was very clear, go ahead, Sydney.
Dr. Bacchus, I have a bit of a separate question, but as someone who's balancing your clinical and surgical practice, your research as well, what metrics of success matter most to you now compared to when you were earlier in your training?
Well, early in your career, like post-training in academic medicine, you have to get promoted. That's like, from year 1, as soon as you get out, you need to get board certified. I tell all of our graduating residents that your number 1 priority is to get board certified. That's your ticket to go wherever, to do whatever. Without your board certification, you'll be kind of in purgatory as a board eligible kind of forever person. That's a problem. So you need to get board certified. That doesn't mean you need to come out and crank out 500 cases. In fact, it means the exact opposite. You need to not be doing 500 cases, and instead you need to make sure that you get that stamp of approval. And then you have to be a safe surgeon, and you have to publish, because if you're in academia and you've not published and you don't have grants, you're not going to get promoted. So everybody's first job in academia comes with a ticking clock that says you have this many years at University X to get promoted from assistant to associate professor. And if you haven't done it in the 7 years or 5 years or 6 years, you have to go. So it's very crystal clear what your top priorities have to be then. You have to establish yourself. It's pretty prefab, honestly. I don't have to worry about that now. Now I'm professor, named professor even. I can't go any higher, if you will, other than emeritus when I retire. And so for me, I think it's all about the legacy that you're creating and the people that you've helped along the way. And Like, I'm not going to get a Nobel Prize. I'm not going to, be getting some presidential honor or whatever. I want to be able to say that I helped this many people to realize their dream. Not even to do what I do, but to realize their dream. It happens to be what I want to do because that's where I'm most effective at advising people, but it's not about me, it's about others. And that, of course, is above and beyond the patient thing. The patient thing and helping individual people, that's always there. That never goes away. So I don't mean to, deprioritize that. That's a given. That's a constant. One of the things that oftentimes I would say maybe like undergraduate students might ask is, boy, you ever get, kind of worn down? It's so hard, or, how do you find meaning from what you're doing? I mean, I'm not in a factory making widgets, like I'm literally operating on people. So I have the best job ever because I have immediate gratification from people all the time that say thank you. There's like not a day that goes by that you don't see a patient that is grateful. And that's golden. That's money in your little soul bank account, like it's amazing. And it's so unique, and most people in their careers have nothing that comes close to that. So anyway, hopefully that
Thank you.
answers.
Yeah.
Amazing. We have another question for you, Dr. Bacchus, in the chat. Thank you so much for your expertise. How do you define the boundaries of each team member's roles, examples, nurses, therapists, pharmacists, to ensure that no gaps in care happen and that no one's stepping on each other's toes?
Unfortunately, I don't do that. That would be very dictatorial if I was like, okay, guys, everybody line up, let me tell you what everybody's job is, kind of thing. I mean, no one arrived here being a practitioner without their individualized training route telling them what they're supposed to be doing. And in fact, I don't do that. I don't like doing that. I don't like micromanaging people. I gain the most satisfaction about being an up here kind of thinker that like sees the bigger picture and that tries to empower the people below to live their best lives and do the best thing that they're going to do. I feel like people do amazing work when you empower them to say, this is yours. I'm not going to be all in the weeds with this. I'm going to give this to you and you make it great. If I had that same individual and said, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, I don't know, the details about how to make a good nursing care plan. Like, who am I to dictate that? I didn't go to nursing school. I don't know how that works, right? So it doesn't make any sense for me to try to do that. And even if I did and I tried to do it, it's gonna be nowhere near what it could be by empowering that individual to take ownership and to flourish in that area. So I don't do that basically. And I mean, I don't have to do that. That's not like so special to me. But you don't really have to do that when you're out there, like finally practicing. You do have to do that kind of in microcosm when you're in clinical rotations and you're on the team. And that team changes every month, right? You're on the medicine team, you're on medicine service, you're in family medicine, you're on surgery, you're, whatever. It's going to be a team comprised of anywhere from, 3 to 7 residents. It can be big teams. The culture of the team, which is similar to other organizations, but just speaking in microcosm now, the culture of the team and how the team function, I feel like is a trickle down kind of thing. Whoever's at the top, whoever's the chief resident sets the tone. Are we chatters? Are we talkers? Are we jokers? Are we no nonsense? Do we hang out one another? Do we not hang out? Like it seems trivial, but it's not. That person really does set the tone, and they should not be so rigid as to not modify things according to the milieu of the people that they have on service. If you got like a whole service of introverted PGYs 1 through 4, and you're saying like trying to take the team out to karaoke, maybe that's not their jam, and you should stop trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. So I do think that the culture gets set from the top, and you do have to be more prescriptive sometimes. And even though I try to not be hands-on, or I try not to be so much of a micromanager. You have to always be cognizant of the fact that the buck stops with you. So I may not know the details of what the nurse does, but when there's a problem, I'm the one that has to go talk to the patient. I'm the one that gets sued. The nurse doesn't get sued. I get sued, you know. Um, Even in the operating room, something goes wrong with anesthesia. Yes, the anesthesiologist can get sued, but I got to go talk to the patient and explain to them what happened. I'm the face of the team. I am the leader of the team. And even though I try to foster the collegiality and the culture of the team, etc., you're still the face of the team. Even if the resident does something crazy, that's my fault. I'm in charge of supervising the resident. And so even though I could be like, I explicitly told them not to do it, and they did it, and it was a problem. Yes, I have some fallback, if you will, but at the end of the day, again, that resident's not going to get sued. I'm going to get sued. So, you do have to have accountability, but there's a balance between having accountability and micromanaging and not empowering people to otherwise do what they should be doing.
Thank you for such a thorough answer to that. Any questions or follow-up to that question or that answer? A lot of wisdom is being shared tonight. I hope you guys are taking notes. I know I definitely am. So, all right. Our next question in the chat. Good evening, Dr. Bacchus. What advice would you give to ladies who want to pursue a career in CT surgery and raise a family as well?
Don't do it. Just kidding. I'm joking. I'm joking. I have two kids, and they're great, and it's been really fun to see them as adults now. They're 19 and 20, and it's been fun. My daughter wants to be a surgeon, so that means I can't have screwed up too badly. So absolutely. I mean, it can be done. It should be done if that's what you want to do. And there are lots more um, policies and procedures in place to make a much more welcoming environment. I mean, even in our integrated 6-year residency program, we have, I don't know, 25 to 30 trainees. Like, it's a big program. So we have a lot of warm bodies. And it's right during the fertile time for people. And most of our residents are married and most of them are having babies. And that's a good thing. We got like department gifts that we give out to our residents, that was unheard of. I mean, when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was only the second female resident in the program ever at USC to be pregnant. And the first one did it while she was on research. So I was the first one to not be on research and to be on clinical rounds. And I can remember I was a chief on vascular surgery, actually for my son for the second one. So I was at PGY 4. And I was super pregnant, I don't know, like 8 months or so. And I can't even remember what the issue was, but because I was on vascular and they had a vascular lab with all the duplex and ultrasounds and whatnot. And so our vascular tech was like, "Oh, can I do a little ultrasound of your baby?" I said, "Sure," So I went in there, like, while I'll do vascular surgery chief, I'm like, the vascular tech is doing like an ultrasound of my son. Kind of weird, but interesting all at the same time. So there's tremendous benefits to being a parent if that's something in the cards for you, and to doing it while you're in training. I mean, there's tremendous health benefits to being a younger person when you're procreating than waiting, where fertility issues can be much more prevalent. It can be more challenging just in terms of carrying the baby, the physicality of carrying the baby. I was super fortunate. I didn't have any pregnancy issues. I know other residents who have and do and suffer pregnancy loss, and how do you deal with that? But I do think that the programs are a lot more clued in as to how best to support our trainees during these times. So have a baby, have multiple babies.
Thank you so much for that vote of reassurance. Really appreciate that. I see a thank you in the chat from Anna. She's an IMG from Indonesia, Southeast Asia. Just want to express my gratitude in joining your advocacy today. It really sharpened my strategy and looking forward to having this in the future, basically. So a lot of thank yous in the chat.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? We might have time for one or two more.
If I could ask one more question, I'm curious what you think about going to the thoracic surgery fellowship through the vascular route, especially if one is interested in aortic disease pathology, because I know there's a lot of overlap there with the thoracic, the cardiac, and the vascular. Yeah, just wanted to know your opinion or anything you had to
I
say
think
about
it's
that.
great. I think it's a wonderful question. I think it's really nice to have multiple pathways, multiple ways to skin a cat, multiple ways to get to where you're trying to get to. I would figure out what your final destination is in terms of what you desire and work backwards from there. So, like you said, if you want to be an aortic specialist, you can do that through multiple routes. So that's not the critical thing. And it's about the same length of time. So you're not going to like get some discount by going vascular versus, CT surgery route, right? But it's the other pieces, you know? What are the non-aortic things that you're going to have to learn and train in and be prepared to do when you're taking vascular surgery call versus when you're taking cardiac surgery call? Um, are you gonna like have a conniption fit if you're a community practice surgeon and who's an aortic specialist, but you're a CT surgeon and you're being called about a chest tube? Or do you hate the lung? Do you hate being in the pleural space? What's going to be the bane of your existence that you're going to be like, I cannot believe I'm getting called for this again. Like, this is ridiculous. And stay away from that. If you're like, oh my God, I can't fathom doing like AV fistulas for dialysis patients and doing central line access, like, no, thank you. I'm an aortic specialist. I don't do those little things, right? Then don't go into vascular because that's going to be your bread and butter is cranking out AV fistulas and stuff in addition to, or I cannot have to deal with somebody's diabetic foot. Well, don't do vascular. So it's not the central part of what you're planning to do. That part you can do from multiple directions. It's all the accoutrements, all the extra that you have to figure out. Am I going to be able to tolerate those things and maintain my sanity or not?
Thank you.
Also, sorry, one anecdote to that. Not just maintain your sanity, but maintain your paycheck, your livelihood. If for some reason you don't get to do aortic work for some reason, what else are you going to be able to do? And is that going to be sufficient to keep your bank account where it needs to be to support the lifestyle to which you have become accustomed?
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Bacchus. I think we have time for one more question, and this question will be final words of wisdom for our audience today and those who will be watching the video and the recording after. What would you like to share with people who are planning to maybe go the route that you've taken this far?
I have the best job. It's pretty awesome. I love to be in the operating room. It's super fun. I always wonder when I ask colleagues, like, what would you do if your kid wanted to do what you did? Like, would you encourage your kid to do what you do? And there's nothing more disappointing to me when they say no. Oh, no, God, no. And I'm like, well, that sucks. That's awful. Like, so I feel incredibly blessed, fortunate, you name it, to be able to get paid to do this. This is there isn't anything more fun to do. And so it's worth it, I guess is my point. It's worth it. Follow your desires in terms of what is interesting to you. It's like following little tiny sparks in the sea of darkness, and you seeing a little spark of light and a little spark of light and a little spark of light, and keep going. It's going to take you to the sun, to where the big light is. It may seem a little bit dark, may seem a little bit daunting, but that's the thing that sustains you is, do you like what you do? It's not your paycheck. It's not how long the training is. It's not any of that stuff. Is do you face each morning with dread, or are you like, I have a really cool case to do today. I can't wait to see what this tumor looks like or whatever. So find whatever your sparks are, connect the dots and persevere, and you can totally do it.
Right. I want everyone to join me in a round of applause for Dr. Bacchus' great wisdom that she shared today. Feel free to use the emojis in Zoom as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for sharing your passion, your truth, how much you pour into yourself in medicine, being able to pursue it with excellence and purpose. I really appreciate your time today. I think greatest of all time I'm seeing in the chat. So thank you so much for all that you've done today. We look forward to being able to work with you in the future. But thank you again, Dr. Bacchus. This was amazing.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, guys. Good luck to everyone.